This is a briefing which I've called, and it arises from accusations that were made against the role of the Anglican Church in the handing over ceremony last Saturday. On Saturday, 29th October, an international audience witnessed the 9th King of the Zulu nation being recognized by the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, and the King receiving his certificate of appointment. It was an historic moment that has never been seen before in our country. When the late King Buthelezi Mangosuthu was installed in the early 70s, South Africa was under apartheid, and our king was considered merely as what was called a paramount chief. The same had been the case under the King's Cyprian Mangosuthu. The same has been the case under King Solomon Newzroom. And it was worse with King Newzroom, my grandfather, who after his humiliations, he was even called the government induna in Nongom. Since King Ketwa's defeat in the Anglo-Zulu War, our kings have never recognized as kings. Thus, the recognition of our monarch as the King of the Zulu nation by the country head of state, as happened last Saturday, was one of the most significant moments in our nation's history. It was cause for great celebration and required a ceremony befitting the occasion. As the traditional Prime Minister to the Zulu monarch and nation, I played a role in the arrangements of the ceremony. As we were installing a Christian king who worships mostly at the Nazareth Baptist Church, I felt it important to have a Christian element to the ceremony. So I asked the king whether he would like to see any Christian rites performed on at the ceremony. It was the king himself, His Majesty King Queen Mrs. Gazeltine, who said yes, and he added that of course the church is recognized as the church in this country, in the royal family, is the Anglican Church. So accordingly, after getting his guidance, and he requested that I appeal to the Anglican Church of Southern Africa, His Grace, the Archbishop of Cape Town, Dr. Thabo Cecil Mogobo, to perform a religious service. His Majesty, King Goodwill, the King's late father, was a member of the Anglican Church. And I want to emphasize this point because a very distressing accusation has been made by the Indo-Ansa Yesizwe think tank under the name of Reverend Professor Musa Kool, claiming that the role played by the Anglican Church in the handing over amounts to an attempt to recolonization. A real insult. I'm devastated by this accusation by Dr. Kool against the head of my own church. whom I myself asked to be present, and who I myself requested to do what he did, and who the king asked him to do what he did. If there is any blame to be apportioned, that blame should be squarely on my shoulders. I do not regret asking the Archbishop to perform this service, and I believe that it was done in a superbly dignified manner. Through the liturgy, the Archbishop did what the prophets of old did in the times of King David, using oil in anointing. I've got my Bible here. It is the James version, and it's in the book of Samuel, chapter 16. First book of Samuel, chapter 16. The first sentence reads, "Then the Lord said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I'm sending you to Jesse, the Bethlehemite, for I've provided myself a king among his sons. Fill your horn with oil and go. I'm sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I've provided myself a king among his sons." This is the Holy Bible. I do not regret, therefore, asking the Archbishop to perform the service, and I believe that it was done in a superbly dignified manner. Through the liturgy, the Archbishop did what the prophets of old did in the times of King David, even using oil of anointing. This was wholly appropriate for a Christian king. In a sense, everything about this certificate handing over ceremony was unprecedented. It was the first. Our king has never before been recognized by our head of state. I carried a duty to ensure that it was done in a manner befitting the dignity of our king. The whole ritual performed by the Anglican Church was not prescribed, yet it was meticulously performed, if I may say, and was appreciated by those who witnessed it. Many Christians have commented after it very, very, very heavy about the fact that the Archbishop did what he did. I must clarify that there is nothing untoward in the Archbishop laying hands on the head of the king, for that is how our bishops perform consecration. It's not a degradation, as it seems to be under the Reverend Professor Mangosuthu. I simply cannot fathom how Indian Caesar can claim that the Christian ceremony performed on Saturday opens the way for the defeat of the Zulu nation and the reoccurrence, as he said, of the tragedy of the 4th of July 1879 in Lodi, when the Zulu regiments were vanquished. I find this statement quite embarrassing and insulting to the head of my church. Dr. Mahova is the primate of the Anglican Church in Southern Africa. I'm perhaps more embarrassed because I've given my support to Indonesian CISO, founded by Professor Kolu, since its information, and I believe it to be a valuable vehicle through which our nation's traditions and identity can be preserved. It is a tremendous pity that it has chosen to take this stance of accusing the early church of trying to recolonize our nation. And by the way, I've noticed that the Reverend Professor has also attacked, he has chided other very prominent South African, Professor VVO Mkhize, such as, for instance, Mr. Mbuso Khoza. I don't know if Indonesia is becoming a forum where the professor has an opportunity to attack whomever he wants to attack. I'm very sad about that. And I would like to say, I take serious umbrage on behalf of my church and on behalf of my primate. I want it to be known that it was I who invited the Archbishop to perform this service. And I believe that he and his fellow bishop, the Bishop of Natal, Bishop of Kusinati, London, and the Bishop of Diocese of Zululand, Bishop Vikindugu, Nulwane, acted with unquestionable dignity and appropriateness. And I think they knew what they were doing. And I don't think that they will be taught how to do what they did by Professor Claude. Indeed, the service they rendered beautiful conveyed the magnitude of the whole occasion. I note that there has also been a suggestion that an interfaith service would have been more appropriate. Certainly, when I was Chief Minister of the Eastern AmaZulu government, and when I was President of Encounter, and then of the IFE, I habitually, at every conference and important occasion of the party, asked that our meetings and conferences be opened with an interfaith prayer. Thus, in principle, I understand this suggestion. In fact, some of the prayers that are conducted at our meetings sometimes are led by Mr. Naren Singh, who is a Hindu. However, the program for the handing over ceremony was such that lengthy opening devotion could not be accommodated in addition to the Christian consecration that was appropriate to the installation of a Christian king. King Mangosuthu is a Christian. I arranged the consecration, and in doing so, I was doing my duty to my king as I best knew. In fact, the Archbishop said he needed only 20 minutes. I even suggested 30 minutes was better, but he didn't take any time. So I would like it at this briefing to take the blame. If there is any blame to be apportioned, let it be apportioned to me, Mangosuthu Buthelezi. But I do not believe that anything inappropriate was done by His Grace the Archbishop and the bishops. The Anglican Church and His Grace the Archbishop are owed an unreserved apology from the Reverend Professor Musa Kul. I think that as he's a pastor, he should really know that every day we say, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive all those who trespass against us. I think that he has really trespassed against the Archbishop and the Anglican Church, and he owes the Church an apology. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, now that I've read my statement, I'm there for you to put any questions concerning this matter. And I know that other journalists wanted to put questions about other matters, and I'm prepared to answer them. So, I would like questions about the ceremony first, because that is the main reason for this briefing. I wanted to make this briefing so as to give the people of South Africa our response to the Reverend Professor Mangosuthu for the insults and expletives that he has fired at the Archbishop and the Anglican Church.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that statement. We will now ask the media to ask you questions. The first question is from Narisa Subramani from The Citizen. She would like to know how has the king reacted to Indonsa Yusuf.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, Shenge. The first question is from the Citizen newspaper. We would like to hear. We would like to know whether the king.
I didn't hear the first question. Did you hear it? I'm afraid it was too soft.
Prince Zola, you will have to sit closer to His Excellency, please, so that you can assist us.
Has the king, Isilo, but has Isilo commented on Indonsa question? Isilo, does he know about the Indonsa remark?
What? The king cannot personally. I'm the Prime Minister of the king. And I don't know why there should be a question that it should have been the king who speaks. When I speak on behalf of the king and the nation, when the occasion calls for it, I don't see what the purpose of that question. What the purpose of that question? Because it is my duty. I arrange the whole thing, around which this controversy by the Reverend Professor Kulu is spoken. I'm the one who arranged Saturday's ceremony, and I'm answerable. This is why I say if there's any blame, it should be apportioned to me.
That is it. What is the symbol of the ring? The symbol of the ring.
What is the symbol of the ring when we put rings on our wives when we get married? What is the symbol of the ring when bishops are consecrated? I mean, it's just a reminder of the words which the king, the pact that the king has made with his people and God.
You know, why has Umtwana been excluded? Why Umtwana was excluded from the gala dinner?
I'm glad that the journalist concerned asked me this question. You know, I've been communicating with His Majesty King Mswati III, the uncle of the king, and he sent a man to phone me from Swatini, asking me about the dinner, and I didn't know much about it. He said the king says that he had heard about dinners. I said I knew nothing. So, in fact, I asked my son, who is a member of the committee that was set up by the king under the chairmanship of Professor Otin Numal, to find out. There was no clarity. I didn't get any clear. No one came back to me. But I can give this background. On the eve of the ceremony, the previous day, Professor Numala and members of the committee were in the presence of the Premier and also in the presence of the Minister of Cooperation and Traditional Affairs, the Honorable Dr. Dlamini Zuma. And they reported to me that they were lectured by the government that Saturday ceremony had nothing to do with us as the royal family. And that our role ended on the 20th of August when we did the Ungena Esbayini at the Kangela Makengane Palace. They said our role ended up. This is the report that was given to me. So I knew nothing. I was never approached about the tip. But on Saturday, we were received very graciously by the Minister of Culture, the Honorable Kwanzaa Zuma, at the Radisson Hotel at Mhlanga, where the senior members of the royal family, the Queen Mother, and other members of the royal family, including Prince Philmon, myself and others, had our lunch. But we noticed that it was only us. There was nothing no one from government, except the Deputy Minister of Culture, that is the Honorable Bapela. He was the only one present. So, after Minister Dlamini Zuma had ensured that we were comfortable and we're starting to order our meals, he then said he was leaving. I don't know where he was going. He said to my son, "We'll meet at the dinner tonight." My son said he was blank. He was not aware of any dinner that night. And he said, in any case, he told him that I've not been invited. And in addition, the most senior princess of the late king, Her Royal Highness Prince Ntando Yesizwe, who is the eldest of the king's siblings, reported to me that not a single one of the siblings of the king were invited. So we're all excluded with them. But then when I think about the lecture that we were told that the function on Saturday had nothing to do with it, but was a government function, then if I correlate that with that utterance, it's obvious, in fact, that we were excluded deliberately by plan because no one wanted to see us there. Yesterday, I got a message conveyed to me by Prince Mbongeni, who accompanied King Mswati III when he went to board his plane to go back to Swatini. And he asked him to convey his thanks to me. He said he expressed his regret that he didn't see me at the dinner and found that strange. And I was most unhappy about the fact that I was not at the dinner. But if you think of the lecture that was given to the committee of Professor Otingamalo and members of the royal family, the lecture that Saturday had nothing to do with the royal family, that our role ended on the 20th. You can make your own deduction about the attitude of the government, especially on this issue of this dinner. It was a deliberate thing that decided that I should not be invited for reasons which I cannot. Because I want to say I'm grateful to the government in cooperating with us in the installation of our king. And I must say I have very good relations with the Minister of Koga. We're colleagues in the cabinet of both Mr. Mandela and Mr. Mbeki. And we have a very good relationship. And I must say that I have a very good relationship with the Premier of KwaZulu Natal, the Honorable Nomsa Dube. In fact, I can tell you of an incident that before her husband died, he was raising money, trying to raise a fund to extend the Mangosuthu Buthelezi Museum in Ulundi. And he invited me for his birthday. Just before he died, I had a birthday dinner with Mr. Ngube, the husband of the Premier, and I was served by the Honorable Premier. She served me at table herself, although there were waiters, but she did so. I have a good relationship with them. So I don't know where this attitude comes from. But if you reflect back and look at some of the utterances of the leadership of the KwaZulu Natal African National Congress, where they accused me and the IFA of trying to muscle in on the king's matter for political reasons, which is utter nonsense. The first king of the Zulu people, Buthelezi, my great-great-grandfather, was the most senior advisor of King Shaka after the Prime Minister Ngomane Mdletshe. It's recorded in the archives of a well-known historian, James Stewart. You can see it, yes, see that Ngomane was the most senior. They say sometimes he used to say to King Shaka, boy, don't treat the king's children this, meaning that the people he mustn't treat. And you call him boy, call him King Shag, and moments like that. Nyama and his son served the royal family. He was brought into the regiment by King Dingan. He belonged to Umkuluchane regiment. Later, at not doing the residence of King Pande, Nyaman obtained his migration father actually brought up the king's children to the extent that because King Pande said his children, the father was Nyaman. Later, King Pande offered the hand of one of his daughters, Princess Mtaba, the sister to Prince Ahamu of Coronation. Nyamane politely said, I can no longer marry any of your children. You said that I was their father. He said, I cannot accept that, but I'm pleading with the king to allow her to marry a member of our family, Ubantu Benchumu, the father of Mshik and Bongbongwen. So later, Nyaman, my great grandfather, was a very close friend of Prince Tejuayo, even before he became king. When he became king, King Tejuayo, then appointed my father the prime minister, his prime minister and the prime minister of the Zulu nation, and commanded the soldiers, the Anglo-Boer War, the Anglo-Zulu War. Actually, during that war, Nyaman Abteles, my great-grandfather, was in charge of all the king's regiments. Even when the king's regiments were defeated and the king left, later on, the king's full brother, Prince Ndabugo, and Nyaman Abteles, my great-grandfather, had to pick up young Prince Newzroom, who was with the people, because the people had turned against the king. He was fighting Newzroom with his Mandagazi. So King Newzroom grew up at Egushumayeleni. That is one of the residents of Myanmar. It is my residence even now. I've got a home there. I've got a bed even now. I have a bed there. And that bed is empty because I was monogamously married. But there should have been a wife there for me. But that's where King Newzroom grew up. And even at the time when Sir Melmoth Oswald decided, because during the civil war between the Mandagasis and Usuthu, the Mandagasis were defeated at the Chaneli battle, and the Usuthu were assisted by 60 Boers on horseback, who were invited by Prince Ndabugo and Prince Shingana, because the Boers had helped King Pande when he fought against Shingana before taking over the throne. So they said they were friends of their father. So they participated. So when Louis Botha, General Louis Botha, took over as the first Prime Minister of South Africa in 1910, my maternal grandfather, King Newzroom, was in jail because he had been convicted of treason. So the first action that General Louis Botha did was to get his friend, King Newzroom, out of jail, but he didn't have the guts to allow my grandfather to return to his Osuthu residence. Instead, he exiled him to Middleburg. in the Transvaal province to a farm called Akik Farm, where my grandfather died in October 1913. Now, you can see now that relationship between the Buthelezi family and the Zulu royal family. After that, Nyamana was advising King Newzroom not to attack the Mandagazis when they fought the Battle of Wandunu. He was advising not to do that because Nyamana actually coined a simile which is quoted very often. He said that you cannot hit a little dog which is being dragged with a piece of string by his master. He said the babe was little dog of the British, and if King Newzroom attacked the babe, the British would not leave him alone, and that's what happened. And that's why my grandfather, King Newzroom, was exiled to St. Helena. That's where King Solomon was born, on the island of St. Helena. You know? But then, that actually caused a rift between the Buthelezi family and the royal family, until King Solomon became king. And he had a difficult matter which he couldn't resolve. And he said he didn't know who can help. Mankurumana Ndwande, the most senior induna of King Newzroom, said the Buthelezis were actually in charge of matters in the royal court. And now they no longer come to the royal family. And then my uncle King Solomon then decided to invite my father, Matole, to come and help him to resolve the matter. It was a quarrel between the senior Induna Mankurumane and King Kechwa and Prince Nyaiza, the son of Ndabugo, the full brother of King Kechwa. And my father, I'm told, resolved that matter with such sarcasm that the king married off his full sis, Princess Makoko, Kati Newzroom, to my father. And that's how our relationship has been. In 1954, when King Cyprian unveiled the monument at King Shaga's grave in Gotuguza, King Cyprian appointed me as his Prime Minister and also as the Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation. I've been there since that time. There is no question of us or myself or the Buthelezis or the IFP. Where was the IFP in all that was happening? I've never needed the royal family actually to break up the IFP. Never ever. There were a few members of the royal family who are members of the IFP, but very few. But on the whole, the royal family are not members of the IFP. And I don't need the royal family for that. God has been pleased around my persona, I, Mangosuthu, Buthelezi, because they supported my leadership. So all this is relevant in connection with the DNA. Because if you don't have that background, that Mr. Sigalala as Premier accused us of this, of marching into the royal family as IFP, Mr. Ntuli, Tumseni, did the same, then you must understand why I was not invited to the dinner.
That is it. Does Umtwana know why the Shembe was excluded? Do you know? Umtwana uyazi ukuthi why the Shembe was excluded?
Why?
Yes.
Why?
Shembe. Why the Shembe were not invited? Shembe.
Huh?
Why Shembe. Baba Shembe. Shembe the church.
No, I forgot to mention. I've already mentioned to you that it's very, very odd. It's absolutely odd that the siblings of His Majesty King Mangosuthu, his own mother's children, were not invited to the dinner. In fact, I've already said, the most senior of them after Mangosuthu, Her Royal Highness Princess Tando Yesizwe, who is married to Mr. Moses Tembe, as the most senior of the king's siblings, reported to me that I should know that they too have not been invited. But then as the question, why they were not invited, I think the dinner, I'm told, was sponsored by His Worship, Mr. Buthelezi Kaunda, the Mayor of Devon. I was told that he is the one who hosted the dinner. I think you can ask them that question, why they were not invited. Not ask me.
Shembe Church, okay. Shembe Church. Shembe. Baba Shembe. Baba Shembe, okay. Shembe.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know why they were also excluded. It's on Baba Shembe. Why they were excluded.
But I've just answered the question. Do I know why they were excluded? But I've just answered the question now. I've just answered it now.
That is it.
I've just said it to you now that Her Royal Highness Princess Tando Yesizwe reported to me that she and all her siblings were not invited. And I've gone further and told you that the dinner was hosted by His Worship, the Mayor of Devon, Mr. Buthelezi Kaunda, and it was attended by the President of the Republic. It was attended by the King of Swatini. It was attended by His Majesty the King. You know, it was attended by the top class of the ANC leadership. But we're not invited. But to then keep on saying, why they were not? But how can you ask me? I'm not the one who was. And any person should actually be able to deduce from this the real reason. This is a continuation of a vendetta against me.
No, that is all, Makev.
Thank you very much.
That is all.
I would like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the media, for attending my briefing, because this is a very serious matter.
Recording stopped.
This is a very serious matter, and the Zulu royal family and the people at large needed to know it and get it recorded as part of the history of this town.
Thank you very much, Ntabizita. We thank the Traditional Prime Minister of the Nation and Monarch for this briefing, and thank you everyone that joined us. Thank you.
He's still talking.
Look, most fundamental market is thanking them.
Thank you. You did a magnificent job, and I thank you when I spoke on Saturday, because I'm very proud of our fourth estate. I'm very proud of the role that you have played in this whole thing of the installation of our king. Please never cease to do what you're doing.